The River That Remembers. Prologue. The River's Whisper. The river was never silent, even when the world slept. It hummed a low, endless murmur beneath the veil of fog that drifted over its surface. Some nights, when the moon sank into its dark skin, it spoke in a voice that only a few could hear. Arjun Rao had always heard it. He'd been told since childhood that the river carried ghosts, souls that drowned and forgot to leave. He never believed it, not really. But tonight, as his kayak glided through the mist, camera mounted to record the night flow for his new documentary, India's Forgotten Rivers, he couldn't shake the feeling that the current was watching him back. It was late, too late to be on water. The crew had gone home hours ago, leaving him to gather the B-roll footage he always insisted on filming himself. "I like to feel the story," he'd say. The others called him obsessive. Maybe he was. The drone of the water against his oar soothed him, until it didn't. Something shifted under the kayak, not a fish, not driftwood. A drag, a pull. Then, in a blink, the world flipped. The camera flew. The kayak tilted, capsized. Icy water bit into his chest as the river swallowed him whole. He tried to surface, but something caught his leg weeds, maybe a rope. Panic clawed through him as his lungs burned. His flashlight spiraled down, cutting through the dark, and in that final moment before he blacked out, he saw eyes. Silver eyes, open beneath the water, staring right at him. And then darkness. He awoke coughing on the shore, half conscious, sand clinging to his face and hair. The kayak was gone, the camera gone. The cold clung to him like a second skin. He rolled over, gasping, blinking through the fog. Someone was kneeling beside him. A boy, no, a young man. Maybe 20, maybe ageless. Dripping wet, hair clinging like black silk to his cheeks. His expression was unreadable. Part worry, part curiosity, part something ancient that made Arjun's heart stutter. "You're alive," the stranger said, voice barely above the wind. His accent was faintly old-fashioned, words soft as ripples. "Good." Arjun tried to sit up, but dizziness hit him. "Did you save me?" The boy didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted toward the river, like he was listening to something Arjun couldn't hear. Finally, he said, "You were sinking. The river wanted to keep you." Arjun frowned. The river wanted? But when he blinked, the boy was gone. Only the wet footprints remained, vanishing into the fog. 3 days later, the incident haunted him. His team thought he hallucinated oxygen loss, trauma. The rescue team said no one was found near the river that night. Arjun couldn't forget those silver eyes. He kept replaying the moment over and over in his head, the water dragging him down. The flash, a face that didn't belong to any human he'd ever seen. And the strange word the river wanted to keep you. He went back to the site alone, camera in hand, determined to find something evidence, maybe, or peace. The wind was colder now, the current calmer. He stood by the edge, whispering to no one. "Thank you, whoever you were." The water rippled, and from the stillness, a faint shape rose, a figure standing just below the surface, watching him through the reflection. Silver eyes again. "Don't thank me yet," came the voice clearer this time, almost human, yet echoing with something vast and deep. "You shouldn't have come back." Arjun's breath caught. You're real?" The figure tilted its head. "Real enough to pull you out, not real enough to stay." And then, as suddenly as he had appeared, he sank back into the depths, leaving only the widening circles where his body had been. That night, Arjun dreamed of water. He was standing on the riverbed, bare feet in silt, surrounded by whispering voices, the current wound around him like silk ribbons, tugging at his wrists, pulling him toward the center. And there, standing in the glow of moonlight that pierced the depths, was the same young man. "Why did you save me?" Arjun asked in the dream. You could have let me go. The boy smiled faintly, a sad, knowing curve of lips that seemed too wise for his face. Because you called to me. You've always heard the river, haven't you? Arjun's pulse quickened. You're not human, are you? The boy stepped closer until their reflections blurred. His eyes shimmered like molten mercury. I was once, before the river remembered me. The current roared between them. Arjun reached out instinctively, and his fingers brushed cold skin that felt both alive and not. The water began to churn, voices rising, overlapping. Leave him. Arjun jerked awake, heart pounding. His bedsheets were wet, as if he'd just climbed out of the river again. The next morning, he found something impossible. Outside his cabin, near the shore, stood a boy. The same boy, dressed now in dry clothes, borrowed, it seemed, from someone's laundry line and looking more awkward than supernatural. You, Arjun stammered. How are you? The boy looked sheepish, eyes darting to the ground. I wanted to see the world above for a while, before I have to go back. Arjun blinked. Go back? To the river? The boy nodded slowly. It remembers everyone who belongs to it. It'll call me soon. He extended a hand, hesitant, human. My name is Neil. The touch was cool, his palm soft, pulse faint as a ripple. Arjun felt the world tilt again, the way it had in the water that night. Something about this boy's spirit, man. Memory made his chest ache with a strange familiarity. Maybe, he thought, the river didn't just save him. Maybe it brought him back for something else. And as the wind picked up, whispering through the reeds, the river seemed to sigh, a sound like warning, or perhaps like longing, because sometimes love doesn't rise from fire or fate. Sometimes it rises from water, from the places that remember what the world has forgotten. Chapter 1. The Man Beneath the Water. The morning sun was pale and hesitant, spilling through the mist like watercolors bleeding on wet paper. Arjun Rao sat on the bank of the river, notebook balanced on his knee, trying to make sense of the impossible. Neil had not spoken much since appearing on shore that morning. He had just stood there, awkward, silent, shivering lightly in his damp clothes that were now slightly dry but smelled faintly of moss and river water. Why are you here? Arjun asked, trying to sound casual. His voice cracked, despite his effort. Neil's silver eyes, still luminous and strange, flicked up to meet his. For a moment, he looked exactly like any other young man, unsure and hesitant, with the faint curve of curiosity on his lips. I like to see what humans do, how they live, he said softly. His accent had a faint, rolling cadence, like a language lost to time. Before the river calls me back. Arjun blinked. The river calls you? Neil nodded, looking down at his bare feet, brushing sand from them. It's patient, but persistent. It remembers, and one day, it will demand I return. His tone was matter-of-fact, but there was a weight in his gaze that made Arjun's chest tighten. He swallowed. You saved me. You pulled me from drowning. Over the next few days, Arjun found himself drawn to Neil in ways he couldn't understand. The young man was awkwardly charming, always hesitant to step on human customs, marveling at small things like the taste of coffee or the feel of sunlight on his skin. He asked endless questions, sometimes staring at objects with wonder, as if trying to decode the meaning of their existence. And yet, there was an edge to him. At night, when the mist rolled low and the river whispered against its banks, Neil's silver eyes would glow faintly. Shadows seemed to cling to him, like the river itself refused to let him go. Arjun had glimpsed him vanish into thin air more than once, a fleeting ripple in the mist, and suddenly he was gone. One evening, Arjun followed him, unable to resist the pull. Neil had walked to a secluded part of the river, a stretch where the water ran black and silent, where no one came. He stood on the edge, watching the current, whispering words in a language Arjun could not understand. "Neil," Arjun called, stepping closer. The sound of his own voice startled him, breaking the delicate silence. Neil turned, silver eyes glowing in the twilight. "Do you hear it?" he asked, voice barely audible. "The river, it remembers everyone it has ever touched. Every cry, every joy, every death. I hear them." "What does it want from you?" Arjun asked. Neil's gaze softened, and he finally stepped closer to the edge, bare feet wet, dark hair sticking to his forehead. "It doesn't want anything, it only remembers. And sometimes, it allows me to walk among humans for a little while, before I am called back." Arjun noticed the faint bruises along Neil's wrists, the way his skin seemed almost translucent, like water trapped in flesh. A chill ran through him. "And what happens when it calls you back?" Neil looked down at the river, silent for a long moment. "Then I must go, always." His voice held no bitterness, only inevitability. "It doesn't care for attachment. It never will. Humans, they are fleeting." Arjun's heart ached at the in his voice. He wanted to argue, to say that love was stronger than rivers or time. But something in the air told him that this was no ordinary river, no ordinary boy. The hint of horror came that night. Arjun had stayed late filming, capturing the eerie reflections of moonlight on water. Neil had gone back to the small cabin Arjun had rented for him, or so he thought. The camera caught movement, something inhuman. When Arjun reviewed the footage, he froze. There was Neil, standing in the river, waist deep in black water, silver eyes glowing, hair floating like it had no weight. He raised a hand slowly, and the current responded, forming shapes, faces of drowning people, mouths opening silently in screams. The river was alive. Arjun dropped the camera, heart pounding. The horror of the river's memory pressed on him. It wasn't just a river. It was a vessel of all forgotten deaths, all lost souls, and Neil was its emissary, its only visitor allowed to walk among humans before being called back. The next morning, he confronted Neil. "Did you—" Arjun swallowed, voice trembling. "Did you do that? Were you controlling the river?" Neil looked away, hands twisting nervously. "I don't control it. I exist within it. The river remembers me, calls me, and I can speak with it, sometimes even guide it." His gaze met Arjun's, heavy and pleading. "I never wanted to scare you." Arjun felt a mix of awe and fear, and something else, something impossible, a pull toward him, a warmth that contradicted the chill in Neil's skin. "Neil, He stopped, words failing him. The human heart was not built to reason with spirits. Neil took a hesitant step closer. "You're different. You hear it too. That's why you survived." His silver eyes searched Arjun's, and for the first time, he smiled, fully small, fragile, yet full of longing. "Not many can hear the river and live to speak of it." Arjun's breath hitched. "Then, I want to understand. I want to live among humans?" Neil asked softly, finishing the thought. "Yes, you would be careful. The river doesn't forgive curiosity." That night, Arjun dreamt again of water, deeper, colder, more alive than before. The river rose around him, carrying voices, whispers, faces twisted in silence. And there, among the shadows, Neil's silver eyes appeared. "Why do you follow me?" he asked. His voice echoed both in the dream and in Arjun's chest. I don't know," Arjun admitted. I think I'm afraid. Afraid I'll never see you." Neil stepped closer, almost touching him. "Then live carefully. Humans are fragile. The river is eternal." Arjun woke with a start, heart racing, the memory of Neil's touch lingering on his skin. Something in him had shifted. Fear had mingled with longing, and fascination with desire. He realized, in that moment, that he would follow Neil anywhere, even into the river itself. Because some connections are not bound by time, nor by life, nor even by the natural order of the world. And the river remembered everything. Chapter 2. The Town That Feared the Current. The next morning, Arjun decided he needed context. A river that remembered. A boy who was not entirely human, and a current that whispered of death, were more than he could film or rationalize without some answers. The town near the river was small, almost forgotten, hemmed in by misty forests and rolling hills. Its streets smelled of wet earth and old timber, and the houses leaned toward the river as if drawn by an unseen gravity. Locals eyed Arjun with suspicion when he arrived, his camera and tripod clattering on the cobblestones. "Don't go too far," a shopkeeper warned, wringing her hands. "The river, it takes more than it gives." Arjun frowned. "I'm just here to record the river for my documentary." She shook her head. "You don't understand. The river remembers. It doesn't forgive curiosity. People go missing, and it keeps them." He raised an eyebrow. "Keeps them?" The woman glanced over her shoulder, eyes wide. "It calls them back, every 100 years, maybe sooner, and sometimes it sends someone to warn the living. Like the boy you rescued." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He's not human." Arjun froze. He hadn't told anyone about Neil. No one yet. Here was confirmation from a stranger. His pulse quickened. "How do you know that?" She shook her head. "We've all seen him. In the river. Sometimes in the mist. Silver eyes. Young. Ageless. Always near water, then gone. Only the river remains." Arjun's stomach tightened. Everything he had felt, everything he had seen, wasn't an illusion. Neil was real. More than real. And the town feared him. Later, he walked toward the old library, hoping for records or tales about the river's history. Dust and candlelight filled the small room. Old tomes and yellowed manuscripts lay stacked like forgotten memories. Arjun pulled out a book, brittle with age. Legends of the Currents. His eyes scanned the pages. There it was, a tale of a river that remembered, of a spirit bound to its waters. The spirit would walk among humans, curious, compassionate, sometimes mischievous, but its presence foretold danger. Any human who lingered too long risked being claimed by the current itself. A photograph fell from between the pages. Arjun picked it up with trembling fingers. The man in the picture had silver eyes, dark hair floating around his face. Ageless, timeless. The caption read, "Neil, the river's ward. Last seen 1973. Arjun blinked. His heart pounded. Boy, before him, standing on the riverbank, was the same. Yet, he was here alive, walking among humans. That evening, Arjun returned to the river. The fog hung low like a curtain, swallowing the banks and swallowing the stars. He found Neil at the edge, sitting on a boulder, knees drawn up, eyes on the current. "You found out," Neil said without looking. "I had to," Arjun replied. "I needed to know. People here, they speak of you like you're a ghost. A warning." Neil's lips curved faintly. "They fear what they do not understand. But I do not choose fear. Only curiosity. And sometimes, friendship." Arjun's throat tightened. Friendship? Or something more? His voice was barely a whisper, but the words hung heavy in the mist. Neil finally looked at him. Silver eyes glimmered with emotion too deep to name. Perhaps both, he admitted softly. The intimacy between them crackled like electricity. Arjun took a cautious step closer. His hand hovered near Neil's. The boy didn't move away. Instead, he leaned forward, just enough for Arjun to brush his palm against his own. Cold, yes, but alive, pulsing faintly like water trapped in human skin. The river responded. Tiny ripples spread across its surface, whispering voices rising and falling in an eerie chorus. Shadows shifted in the mist. The air smelled of wet moss and old secrets. "Do you feel it?" Neil asked, voice trembling slightly. "The river, it knows. It knows I linger here with you." Arjun nodded, unable to speak. Fear and desire fought in his chest. Every instinct screamed to pull away, yet his heart urged him closer. The night deepened. Neil's body shimmered faintly under the moonlight, as if he existed partly in the world and partly in another, fluid realm. The whispers of the river grew louder, more insistent. Arjun felt them pressing at the edges of his mind. Faces drowned, faces, eyes staring, mouths opening in silent pleas. Arjun. Neil's hand found his, firm, fragile, living and yet not. "I shouldn't be here long. The river, it waits." Arjun shook his head. "Then stay a little longer, just with me." Neil's lips curved in a small, sad smile. "I cannot. The river is patient, but it is relentless. One day soon, it will come for me, and I cannot fight it." A sudden current surged from the depths, frothing, churning. The river's voice rose to a crescendo, a cacophony of memory and warning. Arjun staggered back, pulling Neil with him, but the boy's gaze remained calm, almost resigned. "The river remembers everything," Neil whispered. "Everything I have been, everything I have lost, and now, everything I feel for you." Arjun's heart lurched. Every fiber of him wanted to hold Neil, to fight the inevitable, to cling to this impossible connection. The river had always been stronger than desire. The boy belonged to it. Days passed. Arjun tried to ignore the pull of the river, the danger of curiosity, and the growing ache in his chest whenever Neil was near. The town's whispers, river's warnings, and the strange events at night reminded him of the fragility of their situation. One evening, Arjun awoke to find Neil gone. Not vanished like before, truly gone. Only his handprint remained on the damp ground, and the river glimmered silver in the moonlight. The whispers were louder than ever, almost like a lament. Arjun sank to his knees, clutching the soil. Fear, sorrow, and longing collided inside him. The river had taken him once, and it would claim him again. Still, Arjun could not hate it. He could not hate Neil. Because love, he realized, sometimes blooms not in safety or certainty, in the spaces between fear and longing, life and death, human and spirit. The river was patient, the town was wary, and the boy he loved was bound to the current. Arjun whispered to the night, to the water, to Neil himself. "I'll wait. I'll remember. Even if the river takes you, I will not forget." The current rippled, almost as if it had heard him. Chapter 3. The Flood Moon. The town had been quiet for weeks. Mist lingering over river like a warning. Tonight was different. Moon rose full and swollen, pale silver reflecting off the water's surface. It was the flood moon, a time when the river's memory surged, when the currents ran wild, and when the boundary between human and spirit thinned. Arjun sensed it before he saw it. The air was electric, charged with something older than the hills, heavier than the earth. Shadows shifted unnaturally, and whispers slithered through the reeds like living snakes. He ran along the bank, camera slung loosely over his shoulder. Neil had disappeared hours ago, leaving only faint footprints and a chilling emptiness. But Arjun knew better than to panic. He had learned from the river that some things could not be rushed. They arrived when they chose. And then he saw him. Neil, stood in the center of the river, water rising to his chest, eyes glowing silver brighter than the moonlight. His hair floated around his face like a halo, wet strands moving independently as if animated by the river itself. The current swirled violently, twisting around him in patterns that were almost hypnotic, almost alive. "Neil!" Arjun called, voice trembling. "What are you doing? Get out of the water!" The boy didn't respond immediately. His gaze was fixed on some point upstream, as if conversing with unseen entities. The water around him seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. Or perhaps it was the other way around. Arjun took a cautious step forward. "You can't stay here," he shouted. "The river, it's dangerous." Neil finally turned, eyes softening, but the glow remained. "I cannot leave, not yet. It calls tonight. It remembers." A sudden surge of the current lashed out, splashing Arjun and threatening to sweep him off his feet. He grabbed a nearby branch, holding on desperately. The river hissed and roared, voices overlapping in a deafening cacophony of the past drowned children, lost lovers, warriors long forgotten. Arjun's breath hitched. "Neil, I'm here. I won't leave you. Don't let it take you." The boy's lips quivered, and for a fleeting moment, he looked human, vulnerable, fragile, impossibly young. Then the water twisted around him like coils of living silver, and he was gone. Not underwater, not on the bank, just vanished. Panic surged through Arjun. He waded into the river, water biting his skin, pulling at his legs. The current fought him, wrapping around him in invisible hands. "Neil!" he screamed, voice cracking. The river seemed to laugh, a low, cruel undertone that vibrated through his bones. Then, a hand cold, slippery yet solid grasped his wrist. Silver eyes met his, wide and urgent. Neil's grip was fierce. "Hold on," he shouted. The current churned around them, lifting Arjun off his feet and threatening to drag him under. They struggled against the force, moving closer to the bank. Every second felt eternal. The river hissed, its memories clawing at the world, trying to pull Neil back into its depths. But Arjun refused to let go. "You're not alone!" he yelled. "I won't let it take you!" For a moment, the world stilled. The river paused, as if listening. Neil's eyes shone with gratitude and fear. And then, together, they surged forward, breaking free from the water's grasp. They collapsed on the muddy shore, gasping for air, drenched and trembling. Neil's skin was slick, hair plastered to his face, eyes flickering between silver and normal dark brown. He turned to Arjun, expression unreadable, torn between relief and sorrow. "You shouldn't have risked yourself," Neil whispered. "I cannot ask you to follow me into the river's memory." Arjun shook his head, voice firm despite the shaking of his limbs. "I don't care. I'm not leaving you. Not now, not ever." For a long, suspended moment, they just stared at each other. The night was silent, the flood moon reflecting on the river, calm now as if it had exhausted its wrath. The mist curled around them like fingers, gentle this time, protective. Neil leaned closer, hesitant, almost afraid. "You don't understand. I cannot stay. I am bound to the river. It remembers everything, everyone. If I remain, it will take me eventually, and it will leave nothing behind, not even me." Arjun reached for him, hands trembling. "Then stay with me for tonight. Let me remember you. Let me hold you before it calls." Neil's lips met his soft, brief, trembling. Water dripped between them, cold and real, electric and impossible. The kiss was fleeting, yet it carried centuries of longing, loss, and unspoken promises. When they broke apart, Neil rested his forehead against Arjun's chest. I don't want to hurt you," he whispered. "You could never hurt me," Arjun replied. "Not even if the river takes you tomorrow." Hours passed in silence, the river calm but alive beneath the moonlight. They sat together, drenched, hearts pounding, clinging to the warmth of each other. But as dawn approached, the mist thickened, curling around Neil like the fingers of the current itself. "It's time," he said, voice barely audible. His body shimmered, translucent, almost merging with the fog. "I must return." Arjun's chest tightened. "No, please, don't go." Neil shook his head. "You cannot hold the river back. And I belong to it, always." His silver eye softened one last time. "Remember me, not as a ghost, not as a warning, but as someone who wanted to feel human, even if just for a little while." Before Arjun could respond, Neil stepped backward into the fog, into the river's embrace. The water rose, swallowing him in a swirl of silver and shadow. His voice echoed faintly in Arjun's mind. "Goodbye, Arjun. Remember the river. Remember me." The current calmed as suddenly as it had risen. Neil was gone. Only ripples remained, dancing like fleeting memories in the morning light. Arjun sank to his knees, sobbing, trembling. He had lost him, and yet, in a strange way, he felt the boy's presence lingering in the river, the mist, in every whisper of flowing water. He knew he would never forget. He knew the river would, too. The town watched in silence that day. The river had claimed another story, and the flood moon had passed. But the people whispered of a boy with silver eyes, a young man who walked among humans for a time, only to vanish back into the current. Arjun returned home, camera abandoned, notebooks empty. Memory was now all that remained, memory and longing. He would never see Neil again. And yet, whenever the mist rolled in, whenever the river whispered through the reeds, he felt a heartbeat, a pulse, a fleeting shimmer of silver eyes watching over him. Love, he realized, sometimes blooms not in safety, not in certainty, but in fleeting moments stolen from eternity. And the river remembers everything. Epilogue. The river never truly slept. Seasons passed. Years flowed like water over stones. And yet the whispers remained soft, subtle, just beneath the surface, calling to those who remembered. Arjun Rao returned to the river every year. At the same time, drawn by a pull he could neither resist nor fully understand. He no longer filmed documentaries, nor chased stories of forgotten rivers. Now, he came for something else. Memory, longing, and the fragile echo of silver eyes that had once looked at him with curiosity, awe, and something akin to love. It had been months since Neil had disappeared into the flood moon, back into the river's embrace. Every morning after, Arjun awoke to an emptiness that the world could not fill, a void that every human presence only reminded him of. And yet, when he came to the river, the whispers of the current sometimes seemed to form words, phrases, syllables he could almost understand. Arjun. He shook his head, heart hammering. It was only the wind, the reeds, the water. Yet deep inside he knew it was not. The town had changed. Buildings had aged. Streets had shifted. But the river remained constant, dark, restless, alive. Locals spoke less of it now, as if some unspoken pact existed. The river takes what it will, and the rest must remain silent. Some nights, fishermen swore they saw a boy or a young man walking along the banks in the mist, silver eyes glinting like moonlight on water. But no one dared speak of it aloud. Arjun watched the river one evening, sun dipping behind clouds, turning the current into molten silver. Memories rose with the tide. The first encounter, the capsized kayak, the feeling of Neil's hand in his cold, trembling, alive. The first moments of fear and fascination, the whispered conversations, the shared silences, the kiss beneath the flood moon that had burned itself into his memory. The ache in his chest was constant, but it was no longer unbearable. It was a reminder of what love could be: fleeting, impossible, transcendent. And yet, sometimes, when the fog rolled in, Arjun felt a presence beside him, a warmth not born of the sun, a pulse not entirely his own. He would glance at the water, and the reflection shimmered silver for a fraction of a second. He could swear he saw Neil smiling, awkward, young, and ageless, just beyond the mist, just beyond reach. "You're still here," he whispered, voice trembling. I remember." "And sometimes," the river answered. A ripple, a sigh, a whisper. "You remembered me," came a faint voice, almost lost in the lapping current. "Even though I had to leave." Arjun closed his eyes, letting the sound of the river wash over him, the memory of Neil imprinting itself once again onto his soul. "Always," he murmured. Time continued, as it always does. Seasons changed. Leaves fell into the water, decayed, floated away. The river kept its stories, its memories, its spirits, and Arjun learned to live with the longing, the ache of absence that was both a curse and a gift. He visited the spot where Neil had vanished, often sitting for hours, feeling the pulse of the current beneath his fingers. The water was alive with history, with every face the river had ever held. And sometimes, in the swirl of currents, Arjun saw silver eyes looking back at him. One afternoon, as the sun broke through clouds and lit the river like molten gold, he heard laughter, light, musical, impossibly human. He turned, heart racing. The mist parted slightly, and he thought he saw a figure small, smiling, disappearing almost as soon as it appeared. Arjun smiled through tears. Perhaps it was only memory. Perhaps it was only the river playing tricks. But he didn't care. The boy he had loved, the spirit he had touched, the impossible connection it lived on. In the river, in the mist, in the whispering currents, in his heart. At night, when the town slept, Arjun sometimes walked along the banks, feeling the river's pulse against his feet, listening to the stories it told. And in the soft, silver glow of moonlight, he spoke to the water. "I won't forget you, Neil. I will wait for you, even if I cannot touch you again, even if I can only remember." The current shimmered. A ripple formed, as if the river itself acknowledged him, held him, whispered back, "I remember him too." Arjun knelt by the edge, hands trailing in the water, feeling its living memory wrap around him. He imagined Neil there, the boy who had chosen humanity for a fleeting time, who had laughed and wondered and touched him, who had vanished back into the river's eternity. "I'll carry you with me," he whispered. "Every day, every heartbeat, even when the world forgets." And in that moment, the river stilled, soft and gentle, like a lullaby. It had remembered. Years passed. Arjun grew older, yet he always returned, sometimes with friends, sometimes alone. But the river never lost its memory, and in its depths, silver eyes watched, waiting, silent but present, alive in every ripple, every shadow, every whisper. He would never see Neil as he had that night, warm, hesitant, human again. But he carried the memory, the fleeting love, and the haunting beauty of a spirit who had chosen him, if only for a moment. And the river, as it had always done, remembered too. Because some love is not bound by time, or life, or even mortality. Some love belongs to the current, and the river never forgets.